Ruselli Northern supports upstate New York construction with over 400 employees, 250 trucks, 9 ready-mix plants, 4 blacktop plants, and 40 aggregate mines. But their most important number is your bottom line. Contact them today to see why Ruselli Northern has been the choice for contractors and project managers across upstate New York since 1929.
All right, everybody, welcome into Concrete Jungle, a New York baseball podcast here on FingerLakes1.com. Paul Russo and Kyle Evans here with you in the studio this week. Kyle, good to see you. Missed you last week, but it's what happens when you live in an Amish paradise every now and then for you, I suppose. But good to have you back in. We talked about it a little bit here off air. It's going to be one of the more interesting episodes, I think, here on deck, courtesy of the New York Mets, so it's always nice to, I guess, have a little bit of lull Mets back in our lives a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that can be said, seems like for years the Mets have always had something that, kind of went viral for the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm.
First thing that comes to mind is when they put the lineup out, but they ended up hitting, out of order.
Oh, yeah.
And I forgot what year that was. It actually probably might have been quite a while now, but I do remember that moment, and it just seems like there's always those types of moments. And then, obviously, last night, kind of just made it more embarrassing for the organization, as we'll get into. So, yeah, the Mets are always the laughing stock, in my opinion, in terms of things that go wrong. Obviously, you have, like, the White Sox and A's who, haven't won a lot of games, and, the A's have a bad ballpark. They're going to be moving. But as for, like, things that go wrong on the field, it seems like it's the Mets.
Yeah. So I had to look it up quick, but to answer your question, it was 2018. I knew it was one of the Mickey Callaway years. I just couldn't remember exactly which one. But, yeah, this is bad. We'll get into it. Obviously, we'll touch on the Yankees a little bit as well. And then Rochester and Syracuse continuing their pretty good seasons as well. So a couple things to touch on there. First, salt at the top, obviously, Ruselli Northern. I also think a couple other of our sponsors here today, including Dewey's Tavern, then walking distance from downtown Seneca Falls, just across the Bridge Street Bridge. Play quick draw lottery, 19 televisions for all your sporting event needs. Great food and lunch for lunch or dinner. Got bocce dart pool leagues. Check them out online at Dewey'sThirdWard.com. As well as Seneca Falls Acupuncture. Springtime allergies got you down. Research shows acupuncture can relieve seasonal allergy symptoms, including itchy, watery eyes, sneezing, congestion, sinus headache, and more. If you're struggling to enjoy the warmer weather because of your allergy symptoms kicking up as soon as you're outside, give acupuncture a try. Book online at SenecaFallsAcupuncture.com or call the friendly team here down in the first floor of our building at 607-216-8112. So let's get into this a little bit here, Kyle. The Mets, as we mentioned, I'm calling it, we're officially at the implosion phase. I've been banging the drum now for the past, I feel like it's well over a calendar year now. I mean, at least it feels like it, right? Where, I feel like the talent on this team, it's too good to just continue to just be this bad and blah, blah, blah. And, they dropped the series to the Giants over the last weekend. They get swept by the Dodgers, and it's all gets punctuated by what happened yesterday with Jorge Lopez. More on that, though, in a second. It's one of those things where I get it's the Dodgers. I don't think I'm not high on the Dodgers this year collectively. I think I've said on here, I've said elsewhere, the fact the Mets couldn't get one of those games, even on the doubleheader day, on Tuesday, kind of mind-boggling to me. And it's tough because I get Carlos Mendoza as a rookie manager and stuff like that, but I mentioned it last week how they were taking Edwin Diaz out of the closer role, and they back to this Giants series, they bring him in this one-run game, high leverage situation to have the lead, and it's another blown save for him, and he gets placed on the IL obviously after it, and we'll get more on that obviously in a little bit, but just it was mind-boggling to me through the weekend. You take Diaz out of the closer role, this high leverage role, only to still use him. And look, I get, the Mets options right now are not great within their bullpen. It's not been a great few weeks for them collectively, and I don't know if they necessarily had another choice, but like you can't one day say you're giving this guy a break to reset, only to put him right back into a situation where I'm sure mentally Diaz probably just is not in the right headspace to handle it in that spot. It was really a head-scratching thing, and I think it's set the table for what we have seen the past couple days for the team at this point.
And the thing about that last blown save, Adam Ottavino pitched the eighth. Why didn't they just flip-flop them or, just save Ottavino for that closer spot when, like you said, Carlos Mendoza said that they're going to take him out of that role, and you don't just, maybe 2-3 days later put him right back in?
I mean, not even, yeah.
Yeah, so there was ways around it regardless of how weak that bullpen is. But yeah, I guess that would be the only reason to defend it if you are Mendoza is the bullpen is just not good. What is it? Bullpen ERA 14th in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, middle of the pack, but then the starter ERA is 22nd in the league. The pitching has actually went downhill since the start of the year.
That's what I was about to say. Given where we were even 3-4 weeks ago, that far out, we were talking about collective top 10 ERA throughout for that team, and now I think they, and this maybe speaks to a broader thing here where I want to talk about it with the Jorge Lopez thing. We can jump into it at this point, right? Where, the stuff that happened yesterday, I want to save the individual stuff on Jorge Lopez for just a second, but the stuff that happened yesterday, I don't understand how the veterans in that clubhouse, and look, there are veterans from other teams in that clubhouse at this point that haven't been Mets for a while. I'm talking about the vets that have been there now for a while. Your Pete Alonso's, which a little bit different, I guess, after the game yesterday because he ended up having to left in the first inning, and we have an update on him, luckily this morning. But your Francisco Lindors, your Brandon Nimmo's, and Jeff McNeil's especially, right, who are homegrown products. I don't understand how they didn't call a meeting sooner. Francisco Lindor post-game yesterday called a team meeting, but that's like putting water on a house fire that's already completely down on the ground in my mind at this point. I struggle to, I think, see a path forward now for the Mets this year. I just do. And I could be very wrong, obviously. We could be sitting here in a couple months and be like, wow, the Mets all of a sudden are playing, 2 out of 3 ball or 3 out of 4 ball, where it's like now they find themselves really kind of thrust into a playoff hunt. But I just don't see it anymore. It's one of those things where I look at the schedule down the line here and, not to get too far ahead of our own stuff right now, but it's like I see that they play the Nationals next week. And, to me, I view the Nationals as being favorites in that series because, at least they're a team. At least they enjoy playing together. I don't know if I can say that about the Mets right now. And I just think it's too little too late. And I give Lindor credit for calling the meeting, right? But I go back to this, I don't even know if he's the right guy to be calling the meeting. I think I'd prefer to have, whether it's Alonso, who I think, I don't want to speculate on this. I just feel like this whole entire contract thing for him is just loomed over him. So I don't know how much he's invested in the right sense of the term, right? With the right now. That's where I go back to, I'd much rather have been Nimmo or McNeil call this, where they're the homegrown products of the Mets. Why aren't they the ones calling the meetings? Why is it the guy who got traded into your organization and has now become a pretty beloved figure, obviously, but, why is it him being the one where it's, calling the meeting, what the hell are we doing? I'm struggling with the way this team is right now, the culture especially is right now surrounding the Mets. I hate doing it because there's a lot of Met fans who doom and gloom themselves, but you got me on the outside joining you now. Like there's not a lot of good. There's not a lot of sunshine right now coming from the Mets organization.
Yeah, and something that got lost, but I saw it was brought back up recently, is when Tommy Pham left, he kind of made an interesting comment about the way that they work during like pregame and stuff. He said it's the something I don't know the exact quote right now, but he made something basically like they don't work hard enough, the fielders don't do enough work, and I do think, like you said, the clubhouse probably is just the vibes are just even in the dugout. Yesterday I was watching the end of the game and Ottavino's got his head down. Everyone's got their heads down. They're 11 games under 500 now. They only have 10 wins in their last 35 games. They have the fifth worst record in the entire league now. And to be honest, the Angels, Rockies, and Marlins are only separated by 2 games. Other than that, it's the White Sox, who are a 15-win team. They're only 7 ahead of the White Sox. Remember, the White Sox got off to that awful start, and the Mets were once over 500 when they were out west.
Yeah.
So things have changed very quickly, and the pitching, like we mentioned, has gotten worse. The offense is, in every offensive category, is at least 20th.
Yeah.
We're at the point where even if you look at a number like this, that like, yeah, it matters. They are dead last in sacrifice flies.
Yeah.
Like they don't manufacture runs at all, and when they do, it's like once, and then they'll go 2 games without scoring, or they'll barely have any hits, and then they'll score again. It's like so inconsistent, and they have so many veteran hitters, like you said, that should be producing more and giving them more, and they're not.
It goes back to what we were literally talking about this time last month, where we're a month in, and you know, I just go back to like we were talking about at the time, and obviously I know their numbers aren't quite the same anymore either, but like it goes back to what I was talking about, where it's like, how come Bader's not getting more run? How come Tyrone Taylor's not getting more run? And it's just one of those things where I think I go back to this, and I do think Mendoza can manage. I just think for what the Mets were, they needed not a rookie manager this year. It's very apparent to me right now that that's the case, and you know, I don't. I'm gonna have to use, I think, a basketball comparison here, right? You know, I hope this isn't it for Carlos Mendoza as a manager. Much like I hope it's not the case with Alan Griffin, who the Bucks fired pretty unceremoniously after a really great start to the year to only bring in Doc Rivers. But you know, I kind of have to wonder if Mendoza's going to be the manager of the Mets next year at this point, because this is now the second year in a row where at some point I'm looking at that clubhouse, I'm like, where is the leadership? Like, I go back to this term of culture. It's a very broken culture right now on that team. I don't know what semblance is going to rise from the ashes that is this Mets team at the moment to kind of lead through to the future, but I don't know. That's what I mean by, like, I think I finally have broken like the thing on this with Met fans, where it's like, all right, you guys want doom and gloom. I think we're officially at the doom and gloom portion of this team and just where it stands, which I think brings us to what happened yesterday with Jorge Lopez, who the Mets bring in the offseason to help out with the bullpen, a veteran arm. Had seen better days, I think, in the past year and a half, obviously. I still think he's probably a good arm somewhere, but it hasn't been working out all year for him with the Mets. They bring him in. He blows the hold situation for them. Gets ejected. And that's the part that I was kind of confused about. The broadcast didn't, admittedly, like, this is the one time I feel like I'm critiquing Gary Cohen and Ron Darling and the group over at SNY in this sense. I didn't feel like they did a great job kind of explaining what was going on in the moment with that. Like, they showed a replay of when I thought they were going to go to a check swing, they were showing Ohtani on a full swing, like a pitch before. And, you know, the ump was Ramon de Jesus, right? I'm pretty sure. And look, he's one of the umps that kind of has a short trigger, but I was talking with a buddy about this last night that I was hanging out with, and we were talking about it. You know, I'm assuming in that moment, obviously Lopez is pretty pissed off at himself and pissed off at probably the world. And you can say that, like they did on the broadcast, like, well, Ramon probably had a quick trigger, like, sure, but, like, I'm guessing Jorge was probably going over some lines pretty quick in yelling over at De Jesus, and I don't know if I can necessarily blame him. And then you have, obviously, the incident, so Lopez coming off the mound, I could kind of care less about the untucking of the jersey thing. I think some people read too deep on that one, but obviously the most notable thing that happens, he throws his glove into the stands, more of a toss, obviously, because he has to get over the net. Walks into the dugout, it obviously goes into the clubhouse. So before we get to that back-end stuff, what were your initial thoughts kind of seeing that whole event take place with Lopez? Because I was taken aback a little bit. I think because, like, when you get the push notification about Jorge Lopez throws a glove into the stands, you're imagining him kind of cocking back and just, like, whipping the thing in there. I don't agree with what he did in the grand scheme of it, right? But it was pretty mundane for what I was initially, I think, seeing. Still, though, it was pretty eye-popping for me watching the video and realizing, like, okay, this guy did have a meltdown on the field after all this occurred.
Yeah, of course, I'm not a Mets fan, so I think it's hilarious, first off.
It's hard not to laugh at it, though, right?
I was watching live. I was getting ready to write the recap. Just a quick thing. They were already losing 7-3 when he gave up the 2-run home run to Ohtani. So it wasn't a hold situation. So it just got
I thought he was in the whole inning.
No. He came in the middle of the inning.
Oh, that's right. Ottavino gave up the initial home run.
So it was already a 4-run.
Yeah.
They already blew the tie. And
Yeah.
So, it was just he's already frustrated. And when I saw it, I honestly just laughed and I said, well, he's definitely going to be in some trouble. And I don't think necessarily he would have been immediately DFA'd had he not said what he said in postgame.
Yeah.
I think the glove tossing may have just been like they would have talked to him and said, hey, we don't do that here.
Right.
And that's about it. But his comments really just set everything off. And I know there was some clarification this morning about if he did say what he said or his English is not very good, and then he went on Instagram. But I don't know. Either way, he still handled the media availability the wrong way. And then he lied saying that he didn't talk to Mendoza and David Stern after the game when he clearly did.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's tough because you mentioned the broken English element of this, right? And I do agree. I think, hypothetically, in this sense, if he doesn't talk to the media or I guess doesn't be, as honest as he was in this sense, as I'm going to call it, we're probably talking about like some sort of undisclosed internal fine and some sort of undisclosed internal suspension.
Yeah, and he was swearing multiple times too. So he was like getting his point across, and you could tell by the tone he wasn't happy. And then also Andy DeComo, Mets beat reporter, said this morning that when he did his availability, it was an hour plus after, and he still wasn't cooled off.
Yeah.
So Mets officials found it unacceptable.
Yeah.
Of why he was DFA'd.
Yeah, I think. I think they did the media availability after the meeting that Lindor called, I believe.
Yeah, so it was a long time after the game. Like he said, over an hour plus. So by then you should be cooled off.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think. I mean, it's one of those things where, I'll go back to my NASCAR thing. You'd think Ricky Stenhouse would have been cooled off after 2 hours, but this is the way some people are. The fuse is short, and once it's lit, it's lit. But in this situation, you mentioned, I want to go back to a key part here, the fact that Jorge Lopez does speak English, but it is a broken English. And I think it did take me probably a solid 3 or 4 times listening to his quote back to realize that he didn't say team, he was talking more about himself. And while I do think it's clearly not as bad as it initially was if we were talking about, he was saying about the whole team, still is not a good look for him personally either, though. And then the fact, really, frankly, you mentioned Tacoma, I'm drawing a blank because I saw it last night. I think it was Steve Glee, maybe, who asked him, like, to, even in the moment, like, to kind of clarify, and he more or less not only doubled down, but tripled down on his comments. I think it kind of shows, and I go back to it, I think just how broken this team is. And, Jorge Lopez now finds himself DFA'd. I know it's not actually a report, but I did see Brent Axe actually tweet about how it's like, we're looking at a possibility because no team's probably going to really kind of want to go near him at the moment. Like, there's a possibility this guy ends up on what is a very good Syracuse team right now, like rolling pretty good. That is also, he is a vested veteran, so he'd have to accept the outright. So who knows if he would even do that at that point. But, if you're the Mets, I would probably not even give him the clemency of doing an outright assignment. They do have the option of just letting him be released, and I think that's just what you have to do and cut ties and say, hey, appreciate you for the first few weeks here, but obviously what happened, and good luck to you, and we'll see you down the road wherever.
Yeah, the craziest part is he's appeared in the most games among relievers for the Mets.
Yeah.
Has thrown the most innings, or the second most innings, and has the second best bullpen ERA at 3.76. So yeah, his season hasn't been all that bad. It just looks bad because of the moment yesterday and the team he plays for. A lot of teams would love to have a guy with a 3.76 ERA and a guy that you can rely on in late leverage situations. So, yeah, I do think if he doesn't end up in Syracuse, he will definitely be picked up by somebody else. But obviously some teams will stay away because they don't like that kind of character.
Right.
And not only that, remember the first question that they asked him yesterday is, do you regret it? And he said, no, I don't regret it. And he says he doesn't give an F about anything.
Right.
And then how are you going to come today on Instagram and say you didn't say what you said because your English isn't very good? Clearly, regardless, look at how you open your presser.
Right.
That's not professional. You still should be DFA'd the way you reacted.
And that's why, for me, I think it's like the double down then triple down of it that is what makes it worse. Like, I get in the moment if he were to have said something and then like say whether it's Glebe or Tacoma or any one of those individuals in the scrum like that at that point, if they were to ask for some clarification, but like, I probably overreacted a little bit right there, I would have been probably fine with that. You know what I mean? Because he had that moment of clarity kind of right then. But like I said, the fact that he doubled and then more or less tripled down on it, it's just not a good look. Period. All right, let's get on out of here. Let's do a moment of, I guess, good news, if there is such a thing right now for the Mets. Pete Alonso gets beamed in the right hand first inning of the game yesterday against James Paxton. Removed him from the game. Good news, CT scan came back clean this morning, came back negative. The Mets are proceeding, though, with him day to day. It's an off day for the Mets today anyway, so I'm imagining, no, I lied. They got the Diamondbacks tonight. Don't listen to me. I'm thinking about down the road. I would imagine we probably aren't going to see him for a couple of days. I'm guessing the Mets will probably do what they did yesterday. We'll see Brett Beatty at third, Mark Vientos at first, or some sort of combination there. That's what they did in the game yesterday. But if there is any silver lining on anything Met-related right now, I'm guessing it would be that medical update this morning on Pete Alonso.
Yeah, everything's just going wrong for them. Even Jeff McNeil rolled his wrist. I guess he's fine, obviously, but late in the game when I was watching, it just everything, every bounce, everything you can think of goes wrong right now for this team. And, they've dug themselves so deep that, and the way the clubhouse is reacting, I don't know if they can really dig themselves out of it. Like you said, I think they might be able to string together a few wins, but anything like a 10-game winning streak or something like that, I don't think this team is capable of it the way they are as a team.
Yeah. I mean, something's going to have to fundamentally change on that front. David Peterson, he's back, activated off the 60-day injured list. Edwin Diaz, as we mentioned a little bit there, he was placed on the 15-day injured list with a right shoulder impingement. This is a phrase we've said a couple times this year, actually, on the podcast. 15 days is probably a generous number, I would call it. A very hopeful number. I believe end of June is really the true target for Diaz to be back on the Major League roster as it stands right now. Part of me feels like this is also maybe a mental reset of sort for him. I don't want to discount, the severity of if this is the case. I don't think the Mets would label as a impingement if it wasn't in that sense, right? So I don't think it's that. I don't think it's not that. But what I am saying is, I do believe this is a double part intentional thing here. They had guys coming in and off of the IL this past week. I think it kind of made sense for them to, like, if we could get him a reset of sort, they were going to do it, a harder reset. And it kind of worked out for the best that through the way that they did it, it was more or less swapping Peterson and him out on the active roster.
Yeah, and with how bad he has been performing, I mean, it's crazy to say this based on his contract and how good of a year he had previously, but he's not missed. He's allowed runs in every single one of his outings. He's blown games 4 times. I mean, the guy, I don't know. The guy just has to get right. So I don't think this IL thing is really that big of a deal.
No.
For the Mets, especially where they are in the standings too.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree in that sense as well. Right. More good news. Francisco Alvarez beginning a rehab assignment today with Binghamton. It's interesting because he can't remain in the minor leagues later than June 18th, I think I saw. So he'll be back on the Major League roster by then, obviously. But as we've talked about a couple times on here in the past few weeks, would probably just be hitting. They didn't explicitly say it would just be hitting as a DH, at least at the jump, but that would probably be what the main thing that the Mets are looking for as it stands right now for Alvarez, as long as everything goes good in these rehab games.
Yeah, believe it or not, Tomas Nido has done a better job than Narvaez.
Oh my gosh, that's the one. Not to interrupt. That's the one part of the whole entire Jorge Lopez thing last night that I completely glazed over. Nido's reactions to the whole thing was tremendous. He was stunned that him and De Jesus were going at it. He was stunned what he witnessed with the glove. He was stunned with it all. It was kind of great. Let's see here. Drew Smith, perfect inning, not perfect game. That we will have probably known about that. But threw a perfect inning for High A Brooklyn in his rehab assignment on Sunday. He has since joined AAA Syracuse to continue his rehab assignment. We mentioned he was coming back, tweaked his shoulder apparently, and now coming on the back here. And then a little bit other good news here. Kodai Senga has started playing catch. Obviously, there was a lot of discussion about him the past few weeks because of just steps back in his recovery process, shut him down for a couple weeks, but he has restarted his program here. Again, still looking like late June at this point might be a little bit of a bag of sorts or hopeful thinking. I would imagine we're still talking at this point now where everything stands sometime July at the best. For Kodai Senga to rejoin the Mets rotation.
Yeah, he's got to go through a lot still. Probably at least 4 weeks of, at least facing hitters or like a rehab assignment. So yeah, my earliest is July, but based on all the issues he's had already, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see another setback. I mean, you saw he said he was healthy, but he was working on his mechanics. I didn't buy that.
I think part of it too is if you're him in the Mets, I don't know if you want to rush it anyway this year the way it stands. So it's a little bit kind of like I think how we were kind of talking about Edwin Diaz last year in a sense. I know 2 completely different injuries, 2 completely different timelines, but if there's nothing to kind of play for, why risk it? Yep. So for the Mets, 4 games against the Diamondbacks starting today through the weekend, and then off on Monday as the Mets then head to Washington, as I alluded to. The Diamondbacks have been an interesting team to kind of follow this year. Kind of become one of my darlings of watching the West Coast at night. Don't know fully what to expect from, in all honesty, and it's for 2 different reasons. Don't know what to expect from either team of this series. You could tell me that somehow the Mets would back themselves into a 3-1 series win on the Diamondbacks, and I would probably believe you, to be completely honest with you. But just given what we've seen so far this week and what we've seen the past few weeks, I don't expect that to be the case. I don't expect the Mets to be swept in 4 games, but I do expect them to drop the series. I think they get 1, but I just don't see any more than that. And again, with Washington, I feel it's the same case where I think, maybe they get one, but that's it. That's kind of where I am with the Mets. If you're a Met fan, you finally have gotten me to break on that. I'm doom and glooming it with everybody else, I feel like.
I think they get swept,
Wow.
and I think they get one against Washington. But yeah, I think the team meeting is they're going to hope that it sparks a team and they go on some sort of winning streak. But I don't think this team is going to do that. I think their hitting and their pitching just is so like not good that I don't know how they can go and take 3 or 4 from this Diamondbacks team,
Right.
especially when you start with Zach Gallen and Jordan Montgomery, who, yeah, Montgomery has a mid-4 ERA, but still, I mean, you're facing arms like that. I don't know how your offense is going to get going.
Yeah, I mean, and this is where I go back to like what I said. I feel like with the Diamondbacks, the way they've been this year, just they've had a couple moments where it's like I would believe full heart. I would if somebody were to tell me I wake up on Monday, it's like, oh, the Mets got 3 of 4 somehow. I'm like, yeah, it's believable, but probably not. You know. All right, let's talk quickly here about some Yankees stuff. As I mentioned, it's kind of, when things are going good, and there's usually not a ton of headlines to exactly kind of recap and such like that. But there is one thing I kind of want to take a moment here. So the Yankees did get the split last week with Seattle. They take the series in San Diego, and then tonight look to take the series against the Angels. They're 1-1 right now in that series. But main in that victory last night, Luis Gil goes out there and just has his career outing, I guess, to put it bluntly. 8 innings, 2 hits, 1 run, 9 strikeouts. I think he had 2 walks too, I believe. So, but either way, and more on this obviously in a second, but with Garrett Cole very much so closer than he's ever been to coming back to the rotation this year, and only one spot left in the rotation, who it's looking like it's coming down between him and Clark Schmidt. He put his stamp, at least for me, that I hate this for Clark Schmidt because he's done so well the past year in that 5th starter role. It's the way he's been this year. You got to go with Luis Gil. I think he stamped it yesterday for the Yankees. He's done beyond well this year, I think, for what we thought. I remember sitting in this chair when we were doing our preseason show, Kyle, and being like, this is the put up or shut up year of Luis Gil coming off of that injury. And so far, through the first 2 months of the season, he has put up.
Yeah, we disagree here. I think Nestor Cortez is the one that's going to the bullpen. He has the highest ERA in the rotation. His road splits are terrible. I just think that's the answer there. I think Luis Gil, there's still a chance that the Yankees aren't like totally ruling out putting him in the bullpen despite his thing, because I still think they're lying, and I think they do care about his innings. Mm-hmm. I think the Tommy John, they've done this with all their pitchers in the past. They worry about innings and stuff like that. And let's see, where does he rank among it? 63.1. Yeah, so he's second most innings on the team. I mean, I don't think they should. I think that would be foolish if they did, but I still think there's probably discussions in that organization about, should we worry about the innings? I
go back to this, and this was my big take with, obviously Michael King, who's now on the Padres, and also Clark Schmidt. I get very gun-shy around the Yankees when they do that with pitchers, because I lived through Jabba and Ian Kennedy and Phil Hughes, and none of those guys probably had the careers that they really were supposed to have, because the Yankees kept dancing them all between starters and bullpen guys at various points. They put Gil in the bullpen. Oh, man. It's not the right move.
Look at this.
Not the right move.
Nestor Cortez, 6.16 road ERA.
Yeesh.
Here's the rest. Rodon, 3.53. Gil, 2.57. Schmidt, 1.51. And Stroman, 1.98. Yeah. Cortez is the odd man out. No doubt about it.
Yeah, we got a second here. I'll do this game with you really quick. Do you think, hypothetically, Schmidt or Gil becomes trade bait for the deadline? The way they've both performed collectively this year?
I don't think Gil, because he's under control through 2029. Mm-hmm. But if a team were to go crazy and say, hey, we'll give you a ton of stuff for him, I would consider it. Schmidt, I don't know, because he's developed so much in the last 2 years.
The tough thing on the Schmidt front is that he, by most accounts, it was either him or Michael King in that Padres trade to get Juan Soto. So his name's already been out there enough.
And Heel, to be honest,
Yeah.
this is his first great year, so he hasn't really proved himself consistently. So if a team wants to be foolish and give a ton for him, I might consider it.
I think it's going to be interesting because, and this is something on the broader baseball scale, obviously, but we see, it's unfortunate, right? Ronald Acuna's lost for the year, tearing the ACL. And we know that the Braves, even though they've said they're going to keep it internal for the moment, I think, knowing what I feel like we're going to see, I feel like the trade market's going to be a very high-priced area this summer. I know the Braves already linked, especially with Tommy Pham, but also Brent Rooker's name has now been brought up. And if you're the A's, hypothetically, and you're talking to Atlanta, like, why wouldn't you be saying, like, well, you need him more than we need him, so give us, and look, I don't know any of the names actually in these rumors, hypothetically here, right? But if you're Oakland and with Brent Rooker, for example, like, why wouldn't you be to Atlanta, like, yeah, give us, like, Bryce Elder and, like, well, Ronnie and Anderson and, like, all those, like, top-end prospect guys at this point, right? Like, that's where I worry with, like, the deadline. I think if you're going to get, because I think there might be some bidding wars on players this year. And obviously the Yankees are not in the outfield market. I'm just using that one example because that's just how I feel the market's going to be this year collectively. I just feel like probably it's going to be like one of those guys is probably going to be in a different jersey come August,
Yeah, I know it's a little early, I guess, to talk about it, but the one thing that I think is for sure needed for the Yankees is another reliever that's like a top name,
Yeah.
like a lockdown reliever. Because yeah, their bullpen has been great, but there's some weaknesses. Like Caleb Ferguson, it really has not been too great this year. Victor Gonzalez has been okay, but there's just a couple guys in the pen that, like, I know there's upgrades out there at the deadline you could do, and I think that's needed. And also, quickly about Heel, did you see the comparison of Cole and him through 11 starts?
I did actually, yeah.
1.99
Yeah.
ERA compared to Garrett's 2.53, and more strikeouts in less innings.
It's
It's unreal.
it's kind of crazy when you think about it.
And this was a guy that was sent down to AAA mid-March and brought back up to the team and then made the team after some good spring training outings. And now we're 11 starts in. It's basically turning over to June. And this guy has the sixth best ERA in the entire league and best ERA, obviously, in the Yankees. And just the stats, there's just so many stats that you can look at league-wide, history-wide, that he's been a part of. It feels like a video game, honestly.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, he was the guy, one of the guys that the Yankees made kind of quasi off limits for a while. And it's, hey, like I said, through the first 2 months of the year, it's paid dividends, right? I mean, hard to ignore, to put it basically and bluntly. All right, let's touch on some news and notes here. DJ LeMahieu, as we've seen, obviously reinstated off the 60-day injured list. He's back. Ian Hamilton's activated off the COVID injured list. And this is where some sad stuff gets into it with the Yankees. John Birdie in a walking boot, left calf strain that he suffered in San Diego. Timeline of 6 to 8 weeks as of this point. Placed on the 10-day injured list. Because the target date is the end of July right now with him, part of me wonders if we could see a 60-day IL transfer over to open up a 40-man spot. Either way, it sucks. I mean, Birdie had just pretty much gotten back off of the IL anyway. And it sucks, too, because it was just he was trying to hustle out an infield, what would have been possibly an infield hit, and didn't really even make it halfway up the line before, unfortunately, falling down and suffering a pretty major calf strain.
Yeah, and Aaron Boone was starting to do something nice. He actually gave him 4 straight starts.
Yeah.
He started to hit a little more. He was on base. And then, that happened. So that was unfortunate. But either way, now with DJ back, Oswaldo and Birdie are going to kind of not be playing as much as they should or would like to. We'll see how DJ does, though.
Yeah, and then fellow Bird brother Nick Birdie, right hip inflammation flared up again last week. He's not on the IL yet, as I call it, so everything...
He is.
Oh,
it's Friday. He was on the 15-day IL.
I hope that'll happen.
Almost a week already, jeez.
Yeah. So, it's very weird how the Yankees didn't publicize that. I'm going to have to be honest with you, so...
Well, they put it out on Twitter.
Yeah, not good enough on their
Their
website.
transaction page.
Not good enough on their website.
Let me check.
Have at it. I'll talk about Garrett Cole in the meantime. Garrett Cole, live batting practice session scheduled for today on Thursday, and he told USA Today, I'm hitting all my goals. So as we mentioned, Garrett Cole really ramping up here. Rehab assignment appears really on the horizon now in the literal sense for Garrett Cole.
Yeah, he threw 43 pitches today, all of his pitches, said he felt great. He said mid-next week is his next, he's either going to face hitters again or start a rehab assignment. Obviously, doesn't know where. I think the rehab assignment will start. He's faced hitters 3 times.
Yeah.
Has had 2 ups in 2 of them. So, yeah, I think he's kind of ready to go 3-4 innings in a rehab game, maybe make 3-ish starts. I think we'll see him just before the All-Star break. I don't think they're going to push him and try to get him back like mid-June. I think maybe late June, early July.
All right. Do you have an update on the website front?
Yeah.
Okay.
May 24th, Nick Birdie on the 15-day injured list with right hip inflammation.
I can't trust my eyes anymore. Hey, Matt Sauer returned from the Royals. Rule 5 draft pick this past offseason.
And he's a bum.
Yeah.
His ERA was terrible.
I didn't fully understand why the Royals took the run on him in the Rule 5, if I'm being completely honest. I could be off with something, but I just didn't think he warranted something in the minors to be Rule 5, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, Chance Adams 2.0. So.
Yeah, I guess. Or, I mean, Garrett Whitlock, I guess, maybe. I don't know.
And he was a second-round pick.
Right, yeah. Other than that, Kevin Smith accepting his outright assignment to AAA Scranton Wilkes-Barre. And then same with, well, not same, option, Yornis Gomez back.
He was great.
Yeah, I'm about to say he's...
One outing, though.
He's been one of those guys that, like, has just been on the radar for a while, and I really would... It's kind of like the heel thing, but a little bit different since, like, the Yankees just haven't really given him a chance anyway yet, in that sense, have an extended run. I'd like to see him maybe stick, and maybe that's one of those things where, unfortunately, a guy would be more on the IL side of things, and he would get that opportunity, but definitely would like to see him get more opportunity.
Yeah, he struck out the side in San Diego. He hasn't had an ERA in the minors over 4 in all the years he's been in the minors. So
Yeah.
he's 3.62 this year, 27 innings, pretty good sample size. Yeah, this is a guy to watch, especially if there were to be an injury, which obviously I hope not, but
Right.
he'd be the guy that I'd kind of be looking at first.
Yeah. All right, for the Yankees, I mentioned they're already looking to try and take the series against the Angels later on tonight. Then it's up the coast of California to San Francisco for 3 games, and then they get a travel day on Monday to head back to the East Coast and face the Twins next week. Full confidence in them to take the series tonight against the Angels, do the same with the Giants, and then roll on and pretty much do the same to the Twins, I guess. I mean, it's one of those things where it's when you got a good thing, when you got a good thing going. I mean, why try and bust it up? So I see that being the case with the Yankees, especially. Do we know that the Twins ever find the actual rally sausage?
Yeah, I mean, the record is, that's video game numbers. I don't have the exact record in front of me, but since, like, what was it, 2002, is it? The record is just insane.
1 or 2, I can't remember exactly, yeah.
Yep, and, they already looked good when they played them in Minneapolis earlier this year. So, yeah, I mean, I would hope they take the series tonight, but one crazy thing about this, the Yankees are 3-10 in their last 13 games at Angel Stadium, and they haven't won a series there since 2019.
I don't know if I knew that, actually.
Yeah, it's one of the worst records at an opposing stadium, I think, in the last 5 years.
Wonder why.
I don't know.
Especially since there was a lot of cheering for the Yankees last night there, I noticed.
Yeah, they always have a lot of fans out there, but for some reason it's they don't play well.
Maybe it's like a sightline thing, maybe? Yeah. Why hypothesize when it doesn't really matter in that sense when they're rolling the way they are, and I have full confidence.
Yeah, well, let's hope Patrick Sandoval lives up to that mid-5 ERA.
You ain't kidding. What happened to him? He had a good start to the year last year, and then this fell off.
He's still getting swing and miss, but just hard hit a lot.
I was about to say, I feel like when he hangs, he hangs. So.
And the Giants series is interesting to me because of who the Giants have going. Jordan Hicks tomorrow, Blake Snell Saturday, or Logan Webb Saturday, and Sunday Blake Snell. Blake Snell's been awful.
I'm about to say Blake Snell does not frighten me anymore. The Hicks start's interesting though. That's going to be a name if the Giants can't keep some consistency a little bit. Hicks might be a name you see pop up on the trade market. He's had a nice little reclamation year of sort. So,
one quick thing: Mark Vantills is at first base today. No Pete Alonso. Lopez move is finally official, and Danny Young is up from Syracuse.
Wait, they called up Reyes already?
Danny Young.
Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha.
Also, did you see the quote from The Athletic?
No.
Brandon Nimmo said, "There's other issues that I would characterize as our process and our preparation and the way that we are playing on the field." Apparently, he's calling out the preparation too and the process. And Tommy Pham said in November that the process was not good, and they only had one hitting group on the field before every game, when most teams have at least two. So basically, they don't take pregame serious. They don't do enough infield work, and that could probably explain why Brett Beatty has looked not good. In fact, he made an error. He made an error the other day in a key moment that ended up going on, and they lost the game. They blew the lead.
Yeah.
All we had to do is gobble the ball up and throw it to second, and he bobbled it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just tough times.
That's interesting.
I should look and see where they rank in errors, because I'm wondering how their defense is.
Right.
And Starling Marte, he's a terrible right fielder. I don't know if you've watched this year. He does not run good.
He's at the point anywhere where he should probably be a primary DH of sort. He's 35, right? 35?
And that's a guy who I think could be, if the Mets do, I guess, sell.
Yeah.
He would be a name that.
Somebody's, yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
And then it would open up, Harrison Bader more, Tyrone Taylor.
Yeah. Or, well, I didn't put it in my notes for the Mets, but Jet Williams, one of their actual, I guess, true top prospects now. He's been hurt all year. If he actually got healthy, he might be a guy that you just say screw it and bring up. But I don't know if that's going to happen. I know they did a second injection on his wrist, and if it doesn't go well, they're probably talking surgery, and that's it for the year for him. So either way, let's talk here some Red Wings and S-Mets really quick. Red Wings 5th in the IL East. Dropped a spot in the standings, but they end up winning their series in Lehigh Valley last week, so that's just baseball. It's some things you can't control even when you do win. But they are losing this series to St. Paul this week so far. Rochester, they're in Worcester next week. Jackson Clough assigned from AA Harrisburg. James Wood, unfortunately, placed on the 7-day injured list. Orlando Ribalta, righty, called up from Harrisburg. And then Steven Nogaset was granted his release at the end of last week. So he is on the move somewhere. Don't know where. For the S-Mets, though, again, a classic case of baseball. They win. They end up taking a series in Scranton last week, a huge series, because Scranton's number 1 in the International League, and Syracuse is split with Buffalo so far this week at 1-1. And they end up losing a game in the standings to Scranton through this whole entire process somehow. They're now 3 games back, still in second though in the IL East at 32-20.
That's crazy.
It's fun to say out loud in a way. Jose Buto was named International League Pitcher of the Week last week in 2 starts against Scranton. 11 innings pitched, 4 hits given up, 2 walks given up, no runs allowed, and 11 strikeouts. So back-to-back weeks of having honors in Syracuse for the whole league. So good stuff there. Ty Adcock was optioned from New York. This is the Reyes thing that I mentioned, Kyle, which is why I got confused, because Pablo Reyes was assigned to Syracuse. He had been a Red Sox farmhand for the past few years and ended up getting his release a couple weeks ago from them. And that's why I was like, wait, Pablo Lopez is going to be on the big league roster? And apparently not. And then Austin Allen on rehab assignment with the Complex League Mets from Syracuse. So that is that from them. Do you have the error stat?
I'm trying to find where Brett Beatty ranks, but yes, the Mets are not a good defensive team. They have the 6th most errors at 35, and they're only 5 behind the leading Marlins in athletics.
Yeesh.
So, yeah, they don't do anything good. They're just not a good team.
I'm baffled, and this goes back to what, I guess, a little bit of what the Mendoza thing was talking about. I'm baffled because it's a whole new coaching staff and a pretty much whole new front office. How did, like, in theory, nothing change?
Yeah.
That's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah,
I guess that's the Mets.
I won't be able to find Beatty's errors right now, but I will talk about it off the air.
We'll get it, yeah.
It's got to be up there. I've seen him make a few, and I know Frank the Tank is.
Frank's in Milwaukee today. Did you see that?
Yeah, it's a pretty good strike off the bounce.
He's looking good. Gotta give. I'm not a huge Frank guy. You actually have interviewed him twice, right? I think, right? So,
Yeah.
but he's looked good. Kudos to him for Frank walks and stuff like that. So, but that'll do it for Concrete Jungle today. Appreciate everybody for tuning in and listening. Be back at it again next Thursday, recapping the week that has been, hopefully on some brighter terms for the Mets and, I guess, continued stuff for the Yankees on that front. So, like, share, subscribe, all the fun stuff. We'll see everybody in June next week.